Hi, very good day to all of you. It's Vikram Sareen here, Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Bluebricks. So today we're going to have something super exciting to talk about, and let's jump in. So let's get started. Okay. So the idea is it's a kind of semi-technical, I would say, webinar where you're going to enjoy, learning a little bit more about, or deep dive into the, Face ID as authentication. So let's get into it. So we, as a company, Bluebricks, we help businesses accelerate security and automation. And we've been doing it for the last 9 years. And we have, worked with a lot of customers from banks to large enterprises, small enterprises, startups, fintechs, and we have helped them to, make their, services or make their products better. So let's jump into, and hopefully, from this webinar, you guys can see some value. And what's the quick format of this webinar is that it's roughly around 20 minutes. And if we get some time, we'll get into a couple of question answers. Then please do ask your questions. If we can't reply them now, we'll reply them later on over the email or to you, whichever means you contact us. And then just see if you're able to hear us out, refresh, restart, whatever works. But don't worry, the recording is available. It's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, it's also on LinkedIn, as well as directly available as a link. So you can get it if you desire it or if you want it. Yeah, and pass it around with your colleagues, with your other teammates, other founders, other decision makers that you would like to. And that would really help, because the idea is to share and, ideas to actually, help everybody make more informed decisions, and especially talk about cybersecurity. The more information we have, the more, I would say, well-informed decisions we can make right now. So let's dive in. So when we talk about Face ID, it's more to do with biometrics, right? And biometrics is not just a technical choice. I can have other options also. We talk about multi-factor, OTP certificates, and other stuff. But when we talk about Face ID, that touches upon something that, it talks, then things like privacy, compliance, and business resilience come into play, right? So let's take a deeper dive and see how, something like this needs to be addressed. So what we're going to look into, what, why, where. So we're going to look at a couple of stats. Then we're going to jump into, where is the clash. So we'll talk about that, and then go into a little bit complexity which is involved. So now this is from FT Financial Time, and if you look at it, the market is growing. It's been growing. It is going to grow much more, and I think it's able to give us more like a ubiquitous, omni experience. And that's where I think, because of the convenience aspect, the Face ID is coming in and playing an important role. And then also look at the different segments, which are kind of influencing. So advertisers are using it quite a bit. You and I know that. Tech companies are definitely using it. And then law enforcement is also using that. So again, they have different use cases. But also we look at the adaptability part or the acceptable part of it. So again, you can see, how it is fitting in. So idea is not, dwell more into these, numbers, but to get an idea that it's impacting us in every walks of life, from law enforcement to, what you're buying, and what you are, doing online or, offline. And again, this slide again depicts, the little bit on the bias part, AI bias, algorithm bias, human bias, system bias, whatever we call it, right? But this shows on that aspect. So there is possibly, that we have to consider in this webinar. We're not going to touch upon this aspect, but this is something which you should consider. Whatever system you're taking, what is the source, what's the data set it is being trained on, and then how good it is. So I have personally known that when we have done projects in Asia Pacific, and we have done projects in, in I would say Americas, they are very different. Even the, the Face ID is very different, right? The facial features are very different. Yeah. Let's go ahead. So this slide is essentially to bring out, businesses versus, regulation, right? So regulators would value our privacy, but then also it becomes a very difficult balance between how much a business can use it, or what they can do or not do, right? So if you're capturing my face, is it getting shared with others? Is it getting kind of used in different workflows that you're doing, or is it because you're going to blacklist me in one, then can I go to other? So there's a there's a very thin balance between how you do it, and that's where there's a clash between the privacy and regulators. So I'll just take example of Bunnings, but these are some of them from Italy as well as and then the Clearview definitely was fined a lot because they did not follow GDPR. But in Bunnings case, they said that we want to use it because let's say some people who are walking into it are having possibly wrong intentions. They are criminal. They are stealing stuff. So that's where they want to use Face ID, right? Totally valid reasoning. But does it mean that everybody is criminal, or does it mean that just because of you, everybody should be monitored? So these are the questions which we have to dwell into. Idea is not that. Idea is more jumping into the technical aspect, right? So every Face ID scan is a battleground. From privacy groups, which see it as intrusion, regulators see it as a compliance part, and businesses need it because that's how they want to survive. So if you're not taking the tech, if you're not moving into the trend, then you're still saying I'm going to stick with old passwords and doing the manual way of doing things, then obviously it doesn't fly, right? So there's a bit of a battleground happening with all different entities and components coming into play, but it is an important discussion that we need to have, right? And we need to find the right balance. Now, just a bit of a game over here with you guys. Looking at this now, you say, okay, I'm going in and I'm doing a transaction on on a chatbot, on a Facebook Messenger. A QR code pops up, from the business. I'm going to scan it on my phone and I'm going to use it. Now, the question over here is that yes, business is doing it. Nothing wrong with that. Now, that pop-up which you see over here, what is it going to be? Is it going to be local? Is it going to be server? Is it going to be just like a Fido or something like that, right? So what exactly is happening here? Because when we see it, we are not really realizing what's going on, behind the door, behind the scene, right? So now this slide actually puts across, you can do the same thing, meaning I can hold my phone, do a scan, but then how it gets done is totally different, right? So in a way, there are many ways to skin a cat. Now, this is 4 ways you can do it over here. So the first one is local authentication. So it's just an API call on your phone or on your web app, and that will do the authentication just plain like a password. You can enter a password, it gets, yes, it matched, it doesn't match. So in the same way, oh yes, your face matched, it doesn't match. It does not care anything else. There is no trail, there's nothing to do with server, nothing like that. It's just pure binary decision making on your local device. Great. Many mobile apps do that now, which is great. Then the second one is that where you say, okay, hey, no, because of my business need, I actually have to build a database. So now if you look at it, if you're a hyper market, or if you're an online store, and then you say, okay, hey, I want to do events where people register me online, and then they're going to actually come, and I want to give them an experience where they will walk into my scanners and they don't have to carry any ticket. It will be a digital thing with their Face ID, and I can get in. Now in that scenario, it's something to do with server. The flow is there, machines which are going to scan your face, like if you have gone in and out of immigration line, possibly that's another example over there. So that means, or possibly that's an example of the last one. But the idea over here is that the flow where the system or the business itself needs to capture it so they can enable and facilitate it. Something like what, in the previous example of Bunnings. The next is FIDO or FIDO. It's Federated Identity Organization. So they have set a standard. The journey where we had smart cards, we had browsers, active access, getting used, viruses coming through that. So they said, oh, all that is not good. Tablets coming in, OS devices on mobile coming in. So there are many things that happen. And then eventually, finally, in last 5 years, FIDO became very, very prominent, which said that, okay, let's use PKI underlining, let's use local authentication, and then let's also use something on the server side. So they kind of combined local authentication, Face ID, which is happening on the device, and then bridging it across to the server side. And with a certificate, so there's no actual Face ID going over there or getting stored on the server. It's more a 2-level or 2-step authentication that happens over there. So there's hardware available, there's software available. So this is again a beautiful option that is over there. So in this previous example, this could be FIDO, this could be local authentication, or this could be a server authentication, right? And then the last one. So in Australia, we have, a digital ID. Same goes for Singapore. Same goes for Malaysia. Same goes for, India, Aadhaar. And what it does is that it says, okay, I have this, everybody's enrolled, in the country, every citizen enrolled, every, permitted worker is enrolled, legal immigrants are enrolled, right? And then they are going to have a database, and then you can query the database and saying, okay, is Vikram actually Vikram, right? So they will give you the information back with a yes and no. So they will provide you some SDK, some APIs to actually do the integration in your business. Examples is, if I am taking a rental of a property and I'm a tenant, I'm going in, I am going to, what do you call it, verify myself, right? Now that verification needs to be done by a central national body or a state level body, right? So now, all these are valid, all these are available, all these are there for you to use. All these will have a similar experience of Face ID, right? Or Touch ID, whichever you call it. So that means at this point, you have option to choose any one of these. Now that will be based on your business use case, that will be based on what kind of compliance you need to sit into and stuff like that. So but this is available for you, right, by just saying Face ID. So again, I will not go into details of this slide because of we are already run through half of the time. Now a couple of questions that you need to answer over here, and look at each one of the category over here. And then let's say regulatory posture is one of them, where you say, okay, how do I do it? Cost of building, so you say, okay, it's very cost, it's kind of medium, this one's a bit high. And then lastly, custom, which is very, very high. So again, it's not to do with just making a decision that, oh, I like it, it's fast, let's do it. So you have to look at many, many questions. Some of them are marked over here. Then you have to look at what exactly fits into your, plan, I would say the big plan. So our conclusion is that prefer FIDO for compliance. If you have the compliance part, which is especially internationally, use local API for convenience. So if you are making a mobile game and if you just want the login out, or if it's a wellness app, you want to do that, then great. Then use national ID if it's mandated. So let's say I gave the example of if you want to sign any legal contract where you need to do it, then go for national ID. Like customer onboarding on a bank, like eKYC by a bank, typically would follow national ID check. And then avoid custom DB based Face ID and building, because if you're going to do it, yes, you can do it, you should do it if you have to, but then the compliance and security burden will come on you, right? So that means how you're storing the data, where you're storing the data and stuff like that. So what I have not talked about over here is that when you talk about, or when you make your own engine, then you need to get certain certifications done, ISO certifications done, or certain local certifications done. So that is one of the little bit of a pain point that you need to go through extra. So it would cost you extra to do that. And then obviously there are many other factors which will come in additionally. Now if I look at kind of a solution before that, now talking about the checklist, so I've just taken 3 countries, which is Australia, Malaysia, and India. Now, firstly, you need to ask, what compliance do I need to do based on what I'm doing? So if I'm doing money remittance, if I'm doing, banking, or if I'm making a gaming app, I have to look at it, what regulation I need to fill in, or do I need to comply with GDPR or PCI DSS, HIPAA, if I'm making a, health application, so I need to understand what complies to me and what I can do in that, right? And then still 99.99% still fails. Now, this is something which, 9 out of 10 business fails. We talk about that. But over here, because building your own, authentication using biometrics involves a lot of technical skills. So you need to get your AI guys in place, your data guys in place, your, web mobile guys, full stack guys will already be there. But then how do you bring the false tolerance or FUR and FAR, right? Then spoofing attack or deepfake attack. So you need to build something which will protect you against it. And then also business risk. If let's say your engine is not that good enough, then what do you do about it, right? So is it just going to be one attribute face that I'm going to look at, or voice biometrics, or I'm going to look at very differently, where I need to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I don't attract any kind of lawsuits and damages that are going to happen. Then user consent also is a very important aspect. Then if you want to build it, then it might take 12 to 18 months across all the channels. Might cost you if not in millions, but at least a million Indonesian rupees for sure. But you have to look at QA, you have to look at certifications, you have to look at platform updates like ISO iOS 26 just came out. So obviously, if that has changed something, then the encryption decryption part, are you making it quantum safe or not? And then risk, because there will be an ongoing patch and liability that will come in. And then lastly, looking at the country lens, I'm just putting the 3 country lenses, which is Australia, Malaysia, and India. That Australia is okay with local device biometrics, and server-side database is allowed, but is highly restricted. Malaysia encourages following standards and connecting to the national engine, right? So they have given those APIs that you can access, and same goes for India, where UID has also said that taken ahead. So every country is moving towards national ID, and they are exposing it out so that you can build authentication and authorization using that. However, not every business will do it or needs it, and there's obviously a cost associated with that. So you have to find the right balance on what to take it ahead with. Yeah. Now going towards the solution that kind of I would like to propose to you is that in authentication, because this is part of authentication, multi-factor authentication, first and foremost, I would like to highlight, don't use it as a single factor and saying this is a silver bullet, it will do everything for me. No. Even if you're using Face ID, go for a multi-factor approach, meaning Face ID becomes one of your attributes or biometrics attribute for you to validate the user. You can have many more. We will not cover in this. There's more webinars that are available for that. But don't only look at Face ID as a silver bullet. Use it in a MFA setup, or a scenario with adaptive user behavior, stuff like that. So in this line, okay, in authentication, one size will not fit all. So in our context, looking at the context, compliance, and customer trust, you need to define what will be the best fit for you. Yeah. Now, going towards what we have. So Axiom Protect, 9-year-old, TAM, which is Trusted Identity Data and Application Access Management Platform. I would just like to highlight something over here, which is shown in small. These 2 ISOs are for Face ID and data transfer. So why? If I'm capturing Face ID and if I'm transferring the data, I need to follow certain standard. So there's ISO for that, right? These 2 ISOs. There are more also, but then our platform complies with that. That means we know how to encrypt the data or transfer the data, store the data securely, so biometrics data doesn't get lost, right? And then more importantly, it also addresses many more things that are required. Yeah. So let's jump into, what it can do from our Face ID, context. So based on your requirement, if it needs local authentication, or it needs bespoke custom authentication, or it needs FIDO compliant authentication, or it needs national ID support, we have it all. So meaning a single platform which can fulfill your requirement based on what you would desire. So we have SDKs, we have APIs that are basically encapsulating all this and then giving it to you. So if you say, I have a project where I want to have 5 web applications, 10, or 3 mobile applications, where I want to use a single FIDO authentication mechanism, but the multi-domain, multiple, mobile app packages, can I do that? Yes, you can do that. Can I also create my own onboarding, secure onboarding, ISO certified, where I have my own way of storing the secure data of facial biometrics and all that stuff, voice biometrics, and then reuse it elsewhere in another flow? Yes, you can do that. Universities, can do that. Banks can do that. If you're a hypermarket, you can do that. Or for any other business that you are, looking at it. Then national ID. So you say, okay, I want to connect to the national ID so that I can authenticate using that also. So do you do that? Yes. So the idea over here is that when you're looking at a platform or a solution, then you need to look at in totality, not just get stuck with one, building it, but then if you're buying something, then you want the flexibility that all the options which are available in the market or for my business, that applies to me. So we have a customer, an MNC multinational, complying with different regulations in different countries. They actually loved our product. The reason is because it worked with somewhere in the national ID, because that was demanded. Somewhere they looked at FIDO because it was internationally, needed and accepted, and it was good for them. And then on the other hand, they also said, hey, I also want to look at local authentication and being a part of it. Again, in a multi-factor way, meaning that you would use Face ID, Touch ID, but with other components that are coming into the play. We call it mobile trust, but that's how it is being built around. So I think a lovely, beautiful, I would say value, that Axiom Protect can give to you by bringing all of these together. Yeah. Now, again, there's a very beautiful data sheet which will explain more in details. So you can go ahead and scan the QR code or shoot an email to us, and we'll respond to you with that. And next is Now, we have to look at, so now obviously we looked at the solution. Now you are building something, or you're going to be a regulator, or you're going to be possibly a bank, or a business or a property company. Now, if you're going to look at it now from what we have gone through in this, webinar, you will be making certain decisions. So this particular table is bringing that out, which very briefly was mentioned earlier, that what I need to look at if I'm a software developer. And again, that decisions you have to make. So if you're building something for a client, I think these are the questions that you should be asking them, right? And if you are, building it for yourself because you're a product owner, you're a system integrator, then going ahead, right? And if you're a regulator, you'll obviously have a very different way of looking at it. And at the end of the day, the business, which is, following the regulations and, satisfying the customers, engaging with system integrators and application developers to make something for them, have to be at the forefront, and then make the decision that, okay, what will be the right balance for me, so that I can have all the parties happy, but yet do my business ahead. So this is, again, a beautiful, I would say, slide which you can go through. You can think more. So these are points that can get you started, from our side. There can be a tabletop discussion that you guys can, do within your team or with us, and, see in a deeper way what exactly, has to be achieved. Again, a maturity level, when I talked about all those 4 things, ISO certifications, following standards, having multiple deployments. So this is something which we have to offer to you and to our customers, that how we can bring that value to you in a very, very fast way. So one of the questions that possibly might come into your mind is that, hey, how fast or how soon we can do it? Now, we have some projects which have been only 2 weeks, amazing tech, set of people literally picked up at, SDK and rolled it out. FIDO integration, less than 3 days, that's how fast it is, right? Integration in a custom web app, not a problem. Doing customer onboarding with eKYC, where you're capturing the data, timeline of 45 to 2 months. So again, it varies, but we have done ample number of projects that can actually help us, we can help you to, look at it. So lastly, with XDM Protect, you don't have to choose, one of them. You can say, okay, hey, I want to go local for my specific app. Yes, here it is. Hey, I want to go FIDO, which is again available through SAML and OpenID, SSO scenario. Yes, you can do that, or custom, SDKs. If you say I need a national ID or custom database, yes, you can do that. So the idea is that you can choose for the specific business or the specific business use case that you have, within your company, and go ahead with the compliance and the customer journey. Now, what next? So very quickly, I think I've overshot a little bit of time. What we suggest, okay, without us getting engaged, whatever you're doing right now, please look at this. Meaning, map down your use case. If you're embarking on the journey, look at FaceID, where you're going to use it. Is it physical? Is it onboarding time? Is it transaction time, approval time? And now a lot of fraud you can stop by having this at a step of self-service portal. So if you're doing self-service service, or if you're doing a ticketing where you're asking people certain questions, then you can actually remove that and bring the FaceID into play. We have workflows where we're using this in combination with WhatsApp. So we send a push to the WhatsApp, they open it up, come to the screen, actually do the authentication and go ahead. And I already showed you earlier that from a social messaging like a Facebook Messenger, where a commerce is going on, you can actually push it out to do the authentication and security over there. So ample ways of integrating it. Imagination, is the only way, you can say, okay, what do I want to do? And lastly, ask your regulator. So, you should know what regulations are being followed. You should do a quick risk analysis on top of that. And lastly, you need to make sure that you want to build it yourself. If you really have to, because of this project that you're doing, possibly for government, or you say, hey, let me buy it, from a vendor like, Bluebricks, and then take it ahead. And also finally look at the user sentiment. Like in the case of Bunnings, I think many people didn't like that, so are you really going to hurt somebody's sentiments by bringing something out? So it's not just about, money and efficiency and automation, but it's also about, what exactly your customers, are I would say, demanding, or, what their sentiments are for that. Yeah. And lastly, for giving your 20, I would say 25 minutes, we do a free, gap analysis with you. So, if you don't have if you have a smaller team, or if you would like us to sit with your big or small team, and brainstorm how we can bring this out, what gaps you want to do. So we have certain templates that are ready, and so ready and build a template checklist that we can give it to you or work with you, and then also sit with you for 45 minutes to actually help you out, to see where something like this can fit in. Yeah. So there's a QR code that you can scan, or just send us an email on connect@bluebricks. And we'll be more than happy to take the discussion ahead. Yeah. So I have short 25 minutes and plus, but with that, the last comment, Face ID is never about just a user feature. It's more about compliance acceleration. If done rightly. If done wrongly, then there's a bit of liability that will come and, bite us. With that, thank you so much. I apologize. I have overshot the time by 40 minutes, 40 seconds. But if you have any questions, please do drop in, and would love to, hear from you. Cheers. Thank you.